Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization, doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle, and as I do every week, I invite two of my favorite people to join me. Nancy Derringer, sitting in the chair of honor.
The bimbo chair.
And Alan Lengel.
Hello.
Deadline Detroit. Welcome to
Hello,
both of you.
Detroit.
And, dear audience, we have a special treat for you today. We're going to open the program with a dramatic reading.
Okay.
Of course, as this is being recorded on 9/11, so this is, of course, the 18th anniversary of the World Trade Center accident, of course, and it's a somber time. Lots of people posting their remembrances, talking about this all day. And typically, in a situation like this, whether it's Pearl Harbor Day or D-Day, presidents are supposed to give uplifting messages. So, in our dramatic reading, I am giving Nancy Derringer the opportunity to read Barack Obama's final 9/11 tweet when he was president of the United States.
Okay.
And that will be followed up by Alan's dramatic reading of President Trump's first 9/11 tweet today. So, Nancy, take it away. Do your best Barack Obama.
Well, I can't do that, but I'll just read it. As we remember those we lost on 9/11, we also remember the spirit of unity and togetherness that defined the weeks and months after. On this day of service, I'm reflecting on all those still working to embrace that spirit, today and every day.
Very nice. Now, Mr. Trump.
Pretty similar. If it weren't for the never-ending fake news about me, and with all that I've done, more than any other president in the first 2.5 years, I would be leading the partners of the lamestream media by 20 points. Sorry, but true. Which is very, he's reaching out there.
Bring the country together.
That was a unifying message. Absolutely.
Bind up our wounds.
What was Saturday Night Live with Al Franken? He said, was it the Al Franken generation?
Yes.
How does this impact Al Franken? And I think it's the Trump generation. How does this impact Donald Trump?
Well, of course, he woke up this morning and saw the polling data that has just come out that shows him to losing to just about every single candidate on the Democratic side.
Even Tulsi Gabbard.
Andrew Yang
Oh, my God.
was winning against in a hypothetical head-to-head with Donald
Still
Trump.
early.
Andrew Yang was winning. So the
Yeah.
polling data is pretty bad.
Yeah.
His approval rating's down at about 38% right now, 37, something like that.
Slipping.
Lowest it's been since January.
Okay.
So he's got some problems. He obviously doesn't like when polls show him not being the greatest president in the history of mankind, at least in people's eyes.
He's done more than any other president in the first 2.5 years,
somebody-
from what I understand.
Can somebody tell me how he qualifies that statement? What is that based on?
He doesn't. It's based on whatever fantasy is flying through his decaying brain.
The only thing that I think he's probably done more of than any other president is hit golf balls, but he would never admit that because then he would have to admit that he's actually cheating.
Yeah.
Because he can't admit to actually hitting the ball as many times as he actually does. It's like that old Bugs Bunny cartoon where he has like 92 shots and all he's like, 2.
As someone who does not pay much attention to golf whatsoever, my favorite single factoid about Trump and his golf game is that he routinely drives his cart onto the greens, which is considered like a huge faux pas in golfing.
It's not a faux pas. It's the kind of thing that gets you kicked out of your country club. Okay? Because greens cost a whole lot of money to maintain and to get right. And if they're not right, members complain.
Yes.
Golf course, you will get kicked off a golf course if you're driving the cart on the green. Now, granted, you're the president of the United States. You can do what you want. But if you're that lazy that you can't park it on the side and walk the 5 steps to the green, I got a problem with that. So it's not been a good week for the president.
He's not a fitness enthusiast.
National Security Advisor John Bolton was either fired or resigned, depending on who you believe. And the fact is, John Bolton, for as much as that guy scares the crap out of me, he's never lied about the weird stuff he wants to do.
No.
I believe that he said, no, I offered to resign. And
The walrus mustache of doom. Yeah.
Well, whenever there's
Exactly
a disparity of 2 stories and Trump is included, you have to believe the other person. I mean, he's got a consistent record of not telling the truth. I mean, it's interesting. John Bolton is like the bad penny in Washington that keeps, showing up.
Yeah.
And amazingly, he was able to, make his way into the Trump administration, only for them to realize this guy is insane, which previous administrations have realized that this guy is dangerous. This guy has no diplomacy skills, and he thinks it's like a game of Stratego, back in the old days, where you just, conquer.
Like I said, John Bolton, this is the architect of the Iraq War, basically, one of them. Somebody who's also advocated bombing just about every enemy we've ever had, still wants to do so. Iran in particular.
War is like the natural state of the human condition. Yeah.
Exactly.
We should always be shooting at somebody, right? And of course, he doesn't want to actually do the shooting.
I mean, so there's
he has no military service himself, correct?
Absolutely
no, he
not.
does. You know what? He did. We looked it up yesterday. I think he did join the National Guard, and then he was in the reserve for a little while. So
probably
Oh.
it wasn't
spent some
like
time at Camp
zero.
Grayling. Yeah.
but they say he joined the National Guard to avoid going to Vietnam.
Of course, it's always those guys.
So,
Colin Powell, the guy who actually did get shot at, he's the one who didn't want to go into Iraq, but everybody else did. All right, go ahead.
But
Sorry.
But John
we're
Bolton
going down some paths here.
Okay, part of me, the fact that I now feel some little teeny bit of sympathy for John Bolton just because he lived through this experience really troubles me a lot. And the other thing, I saw a subhead on a story in the Washington Post today that made me even more afraid.
What was that?
Bolton's ouster leaves Pompeo free to roam.
Oh.
And I was like, wow, that makes me feel better somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, I really am concerned. First of all, the fact that Bolton was there at all was scary enough, but the fact that he and Pompeo
you
together.
buy a ticket on the Trump train particularly at this point, you have no excuse for regretting anything that happened to you. It just is going to happen because you were stupid enough to do it. I mean, it's like you're going into the haunted forest and there's one sign that says, "Don't take another step or you'll die. You'll live to regret it." Like in The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
I'd turn back if I were you. Right. But do they ever do it? No. So the hell with them.
Here was a little footnote at Bolton. He said before graduating from Yale in 1970, Bolton enlisted in the Maryland Army National Guard rather than wait to find out his draft number would be called, the highest number, blah, blah, blah. He sought active duty for 18 weeks of training at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Woo!
From
Swatting
July
mosquitoes,
to
man.
November of
That's
70.
right.
After serving in the National Guard for 4 years, he served in the U.S. Army Reserve until the end of enlistment 2 years later. So
Okay.
you give him a little bit more credit than Donald Trump, who
anybody who serves in Louisiana during a summer deserves a Purple Heart anyway.
Right.
So there you go.
Unless you're a
So
Democrat,
kudos.
then your Purple Hearts don't
that's
matter.
right.
Remember
Then
John
they'll put a
Kerry?
little- they'll
Remember
put a
John
little
Kerry?
purple,
Well, he got shot in the butt, so that doesn't count. Well,
bumper
I'm sorry.
sticker, yeah.
Last I checked, that hurts really bad.
It does.
And
Ask
could
Forrest
potentially
Gump.
kill you.
He got hit in the butt hawks.
That's right.
So
He
go
did,
ahead.
as a matter of fact. So anyway, that happened this week.
Yeah.
Just another day of shakeup in
Only
the
Wednesday,
administration.
and we're already well down the road.
I know. Then it comes out today that it was the president himself that instructed NOAA, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to tweet out, to correct the tweet that they said, contradicted his claim that Alabama was going to be in the path of the hurricane. So it wasn't just his appointee saying, "Hey, fix this up before the boss finds out. He's going to be ticked." It's the president saying, "Fix this," and they did it.
Yeah.
And so now you've got a mass protest going on within the scientific community in Washington
and
saying,
a congressional hearing.
exactly.
It's easy. It's easy for us in Michigan to laugh about this, right? Because we're very far from hurricane country, but in hurricane country, forecasts are like holy writ, okay? Right. And they have to be accurate. They have to, and not every forecast is 100% accurate, but they have to be as accurate as you can make it. Based on the available
made in
information.
Earnest.
Exactly. They have to be made in good faith, right?
Good faith.
And this is, we're laughing about it, but this is serious business. He's denying science. More than just denying climate change. He's denying an actual weather forecast that will affect people in a matter of hours.
Once the president of the United States says, "Hey, Alabama, you better get ready for this hurricane,"
people pay attention.
You better get ready. They assume, wrongly, that if the president says something, that it might be true. But and now
There's
they're
a
learning.
chance.
And you wonder how that impacts the presidential election down in Alabama, where somebody just and if people were angry about that or what, but they should be. It's interesting if we can segue,
please,
to the Republican race last night.
Oh, in North Carolina,
in
absolutely.
North Carolina, between Dan Bishop and Dan McCready, the Democrat.
The battling Dans.
And you can read that a million different ways, but I mean, it was good news for Trump that they won, but it was a very close race in a district that has been overwhelmingly Republican for
Trump won it by 12 points in 2016. 12
Right.
points. This was a 51-49 race, and I used to work in that area.
Right.
This district touches on the Charlotte, North Carolina suburbs, and I've been in that area. And if you think that parts of northern Oakland County are conservative, Union County, which is the big suburban part of that district outside of Charlotte, makes that look like liberal country.
Right.
The fact that he only won by this is a district that Democrats haven't carried in 60-something years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the fact that it was close, that should be something that the president is a little bit worried about. Republicans, they picked up a seat that they should have picked up.
Right.
And this guy who won, Dan Bishop, he's a former state senator.
And a respected
guy. He's not a nut job, and he's got good relationships. He's been working that district for a long, long time. And so this is what it's like when you actually have two sane candidates running. You get a competitive race, but you can tell what's going on at the national level. That this guy who should have sailed to victory, it should have never been
had to fight for
close.
it.
He had to fight for it. And
Trump
he did a good job.
I mean, Trump and Pence went down there.
He was
I guess
graded
the night
on the
before.
John James curve, basically, right? Yeah.
Low. And
John James lost by 6 points, and people are like, "Wow, better than expected."
Yeah, I suppose. But
Anyway,
But I was going to say that Trump and Pence went down there, and I think they probably did help make the difference. But, which means, there's no surprise that Trump still has a strong base. But the question is, how big is that base? And the base has had to have been eroded, and it's not growing.
Right.
Nobody's saying, wow, I voted for Hillary last time, but by gosh, I made a mistake. I think I'm going to vote for Trump this time. I don't think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing independents who are questioning more. And I think you're seeing some of the established Republicans who are like George Will and some of the other people are dropping out of the party. It's not in droves, but it's significant that they're voicing concerns.
And all the retiree representatives from places like Texas, I think that could even put Texas in play.
Right. And that'd be fascinating. I was in Washington for 14 years and clearly saw the transition with Virginia, where Northern Virginia became more and more Democratic, and the outlying areas were still
educated
Republican,
suburbanites
and finally
are leading this change.
Yes.
Right.
Now, interestingly enough, this gives me an opportunity to transition to something else that happened this week that I really wanted to bring up because I thought this was one of the most eye-opening and obvious statements I've heard in a long time. There's a state senator named Kerry Roberts down in Tennessee, and he is actually advocating to get rid of state payments for institutions of higher education.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Because they are breeding grounds for liberals.
Right.
Which says, so what you're saying is education makes people liberal? Is that what you're arguing here? It certainly sounds like smart people are liberal.
I think he's onto something.
Well, he said it was humor and hyperbole.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously. But at the same time, maybe there's something to that. When you start seeing the shift to the Democrats in these educated suburban communities, people are using their brain and realizing that what they're seeing is not normal.
Right.
And they're like, you know what? As much as I like the economic policies, parts of this just I can't stomach anymore.
Yeah. I want a president who doesn't embarrass us.
Exactly.
On the world stage.
We talk about the economic policies and yes, things. There's no arguing the unemployment rate is low, although it was the trajectory from when Obama was in office was up there. It was over 10% in first year, and then it went down. It's been continuing to decline. The question is the deficit continues to grow, and the Republicans used to go crazy
over
every
deficits.
time, the deficit when they wanted to extend the credit and all that kind of stuff. And now we never hear a peep from them, and the deficit is getting larger and larger. And then we have the tariffs and stuff like that,
Right.
which is really a dangerous thing for the economy. And it's really about ego. It's not about diplomacy. It's not about the art of the deal. It's about a stubborn, self-absorbed narcissist who is.
I read something the other day that said, this is such a weird economy. We're kind of in uncharted waters for a lot of economists because while businesses are raking in profits, and yes, there is more or less full employment, they're not investing. And they're not investing in their companies and in their future plans because they have no idea what the future is going to hold.
Yeah,
it's like they don't know whether there's no coherence to our economic policies, to our trade policies, to our foreign policy anymore, and they're afraid they don't want to live in a world. I mean, if Elizabeth Warren is a known quantity, Barack Obama was a known quantity, even Bernie Sanders is a known quantity, but who knows what wild hair is going to crawl up Donald Trump's enormous butt tomorrow. I mean,
apparently
it's something.
Today it was vaping.
Yeah.
So just like
vaping.
It's weird. He's in the same place that Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who, by the way, was called by some people a dictator.
Yeah.
How dare she?
Right.
Now Donald Trump's saying, hey, we're going to ban flavored e-cigarettes and
Right.
vaping products. So, candy, cotton candy, bubble gum. He announced that today.
Menthol.
That this is going to happen. Menthol even, which, I know a lot of people are freaking out about the menthol
I
one.
know.
There
Some
may
people-
have to be an exception there.
Yeah.
But I don't like the menthol. But anyway.
In college, I smoked Marlboro Greens here and there.
There you go.
Not on a regular basis, but
But so now we're talking about a federal ban on these flavored vape products, and I'm going to be interested to see what the criticism is for him from some of the people that were so quick to go after the governor on this one. I took a lot of heat for my position on this the other day. How dare you take away my freedoms? That kind of stuff. And I
Right.
said, hey, it's just about keeping kids from getting addicted to nicotine. If the president's right on this one, I'm going to give him credit for it. I agree with him on this point.
I saw a picture the other day of, and I believe it was taken in Michigan. It was in Lansing. Somebody holding up a sign that said, Governor Whitmer, you can't have my guns and you can't have my vape. So it's like,
Wow.
they're going to have to be editing that sign.
you're going to have to peel the vape out of
Get
their
the
dead,
Sharpie out, man.
out of their dead fingers.
Hey, you know what just popped up on my screen just now?
What?
T. Boone Pickens has died.
That
91
was
years
the
old.
alert that interrupted us a couple minutes ago.
There you
T.
go.
Boone
Just
Pickens
popped
died, yeah.
up. The corporate raider.
The greatest
oil
name
man.
in
T. Boone
corporate
Pickens.
in Tixon,
Well,
Texas.
we won't get into his life, but I just wanted people to hear that. So
I always have
91 years old.
yeah.
T. Boone. I wonder what his first name was.
See, Thomas.
Thomas.
Was it?
Thomas,
Yep, Thomas Boone Pickens.
Thomas Boone
That's
Pickens.
that's as good a Southern name as you could
Well,
have.
whenever
right
I hear,
there.
I always think of T-Bone Burnett,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Old Holdenville, Oklahoma.
so T-Bone
There you
and
go.
T-Boone, but whatever.
some big news here. Purdue Pharma just looks like they've reached a settlement on their OxyContin, the federal suit. 22 attorneys general had filed suit along with the federal government against Purdue over their role in the OxyContin thing. It looks like it's worth about $10 to $12 billion. The Sackler family has to give up their control over the pharmaceutical company, which is a big deal. But a lot of the attorneys general are not happy because not enough of their personal fortune is going into the settlement money. They wanted it to be painful for them.
and it should be painful for them because this was the family had their fingers, they've got blood all over their hands on this one, and plus the one of them was quoted somewhere saying, how long do I have to carry this burden? One of the rich ones. My child is they say things about him in school. Oh my gosh. It's like, well, you better explain where the money comes from. So,
Well, that's exactly right. But see, 10 to 12 million, this is one company. There's a couple more that are going to, and there's going to be individual state settlements that are going to be going on. And it's not going to be as big as the tobacco settlement.
No.
Because they don't have the trail of paper that they had with the tobacco companies that showed that they had just been lying to everybody all along.
Yeah.
Shocking.
But there are enough that they knew that this stuff was more addicting than they were selling it as. This was supposed to be the safe alternative to other types of opium-derived products like morphine and heroin, right?
well, I believe this at one point the Sacklers thought they could sell it over the counter. It's
Wow.
wouldn't that be something? Like just
Here, kids, have some Oxy.
yeah.
That's
Oxy parties.
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's just I'm not sure what the punishment should be for this, but when you look at the death toll and the number of people who would never be involved in illegal drugs in any way, shape, or form if they hadn't got hooked on this prescription drug that their doctor told them was good.
Yeah.
And now you have like an 60-year-old woman who's going to buy heroin for the first time because the doctor won't give her pills anymore. This is a problem.
It is a problem. I totally get it. I'm just imagining some 60-year-old woman down trying to score some horse or whatever they. In my day, they called it horse. Now I don't know if that's still the word.
Do 60-year-old people talk like that? Wait a minute.
Well, I'm a 60-year-old.
Well, we have dental care these days, so no, not as
Right.
much as they used to.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I part of me is just like any company that knowingly sells a product that
Yes.
they know is going to create harm.
Should be held responsible for.
Just because they want to make as much money as possible should be held responsible. I'm not sure $10 to $12 billion is enough. And I think the states were probably looking at this as it was going to be this, money bonanza that the tobacco settlement was.
Right.
Which funded a whole lot of projects in Michigan for a lot of years during the Engler administration.
Sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, what's the appropriate pain for the Sackler family?
I don't know. I mean, those kinds of numbers are way out of my knowledge base. But I mean,
I would
don't-
say
you
as
know.
a Deadline Detroit common line,
Yeah.
make them eat.
I want the
Make
kid-
them eat Little Caesars pizza.
Yeah. I want that kid that the mother was complaining
day,
about.
every
I want
day.
that kid in public school.
Right.
All right. So
Ooh, there
we
you go.
Yeah. Public high
Um,
school in New York City.
You know,
All
we
right.
should mention.
Go ahead.
We should mention the Tigers beat the Yankees.
You're
12
taking
to
away my
11.
good stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gotta
I'm
wait till
sorry.
the end.
Sorry about that.
Sports
Okay.
comes at the end of the newscast. All right.
Sorry about
But no, that was a wild game. We will recap it a bit later.
Okay.
All right.
We'll get back to it.
No, we will. It was
Yeah.
it was really quite unusual. I watched the highlights this morning because I apparently can't watch the Tigers because Dish Network and Fox Sports have been in a fight.
Oh.
So I'm not getting any sports right now.
Because I was sort of in and out through the night, like going, hey, let me check the score. And it was like, I think I turned it on, it was 10-8 Tigers. And I thought, no, it's still seventh inning. Good chance they're not going to win. But we're going to talk about it later?
Yeah, well, we'll get into it later. We'll
Okay.
get into it later.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I do want to state, let's go back to Michigan here for a couple seconds because there are things I want to talk about locally and also a statewide one that everybody yesterday freaked out at the news that the Musser family had finally sold the Grand
Yeah.
Hotel. They've owned it since 1933. And immediately yesterday after work, I ran into a bunch of people from the Detroit Regional Chamber that I know. And they have their big event up there every year.
Sure, the
And so
policy
I ran into
conference.
them and said, hey, what do we know about this? They're like, we've been working on it all day. We think it's going to be fine. Because people saw this private equity fund
Yeah.
that bought it, KSR.
KSL, I think it
KSL,
is.
excuse me,
Yeah.
KSL. And I did some research into them and the kind of stuff that they own. And they're going to be putting it under this group called the Pivot Group. They operate a bunch of one-off hotels that are very, very unique and unusual. And it looks like they allow them to keep their identity. They allow them to be what they are without interfering too much. But apparently the capital that they need for some improvements to the building is going to be included in this, which is probably going to allow it to thrive in a way that the Musser family might not have been able to do themselves.
Huh. Okay.
Dan Musser is going to
Yeah.
stay on as chairman for at least 3 years.
Okay.
So I think everybody just needs to take a chill pill.
Well.
Private equity doesn't always mean Cerberus capital.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's in the newspaper business, though. We have learned to shudder
course.
and at the sound of that phrase. But no, I would imagine that the Grand, when you get up, I mean, the pictures are beautiful, obviously, and it's a beautiful hotel. But sometimes you get up and you like just put your nose against like the clapboard siding, and you realize this is an old building.
Yes,
It's an
it is.
old building, and you can keep up an old building. You need a lot of money. I mean, it's a money pit, and
And
Northern
it's
Winters
only open half the year.
I know northern winters are brutal, and staffing is a problem. I mean, there's all kinds of. They've got a million headaches there, and you got to wish people luck when they take on something like that. I don't think they're going to burn it to the ground or turn it into a Motel 6, but
No,
we'll see.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to happen
No.
either. But so it looks like they actually found a decent partner because Dan Musser was saying that they get approached all the time
Right.
by people who want to buy this place, and they've always said no because they weren't convinced that this wasn't going to happen. It certainly seems as if there's going to be no major staffing changes. Nothing real significant is going to happen.
Did any of your smart business friends at the chamber speculate on what the sales price might have been?
No, they did not.
Okay.
I don't think they were in a position to ask, and they're not going to disclose.
No, they're
but
not
I have
gonna-
a feeling that the Musser family will be able to buy an even bigger Chris Craft
Yeah.
than the one they have up on the island right now.
They want yacht money, man.
That's right. That's right. But he's a nice guy. I've met him a bunch of times, interviewed him a few times, and it's a lot of people were understandably nervous. I mean, because an island like that,
Right.
part of its charm is the fact that it doesn't change a whole lot,
Right.
And everybody's afraid of change when it's something like that. But
Okay.
speaking of hotels,
Yes.
the city council here in Detroit thinking about regulating Airbnbs in a way that they have not done before. would put a lot of current. In fact, probably some people are speculating as close to 90% of them that are operating right now would be illegal under this new ordinance if passed the way that it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah, only one every per 1,000 feet. You have to live in the house. You can't own a house and rent it out as an Airbnb. And you can only operate for 90 days out of the year
That's
as
ridiculous.
an Airbnb.
I'm sorry. Can I just say this? I mean,
Please.
I do have an inner Republican who lives deep inside me and claws her way out from time to time.
Wow.
And
Hello.
and it asks, why do we need this? Who asked for this ordinance? Was it the boutique hotel industry? If so, they might have been told to like take a chair for a while. I mean, you and I both know we have a mutual friend who is, and I'm not going to name her, who is an Airbnb owner. She gets a substantial part of her income from that. She's one of these people who owns several houses that are all kind of adjacent to each other. Sort of a unique
She lives
piece of
in
property.
between two of them.
Yeah, so
she has
she's-
a house in the middle.
She lives
one
there.
on either side, if
and
I'm
then
not mistaken.
Yeah, and
or
these
one's
are-
a couple doors down. But
These were blighted dumps that she bought from the city and cleaned and fixed up with the sweat of her own brow, and now she rents them both as Airbnbs. And I don't think she's a problem for the neighborhood at all.
no, she's been an asset to the neighborhood, and
very
this is
much an
something that we
asset to
talked
the
about. I mean,
neighborhood.
she would be under these guidelines as they're proposed right now. She would not be able to operate her business any longer. They
Right.
would both be shut
That's ridiculous.
because she
think-
doesn't live in one of them.
Right, which is insane.
But she lives between the two
Yeah.
and maintains them and cleans them herself every day.
Right.
And she's booked a couple hundred nights a year.
Of course she is. I mean, they're great places to stay. I remember she told me that she had an opera singer who was performing with the Michigan Opera Theater, stayed there for like 3 weeks or however long her engagement was. And, she asked her, why did you choose my place? And she's like, because I need to sing. I sing loud, her practicing her daily scales, and I need to run this humidifier
Yeah.
like a houseifier to keep my voice in shape. And I can't do that in a hotel.
I mean,
I
go
think
ahead.
I was going to say the city of Detroit should not be working so hard to figure out ways to cut into people's ways of making livings.
Right.
Particularly in a city that there is a dearth of jobs beyond the core of the city, and people should be able to, I mean, we're seeing it all the time. We saw it, there was a YouTube video where there's people out there cooking out of their homes, posting their dishes every day on Instagram. And
People come over and
are
knock on the
making
door and- yeah.
money, and it's like it used to be. The underground economy was simply drugs and whatever, like chop shops and all that kind of stuff. People are finding ways to make money without relying on other people for
Right.
employment and stuff like that, which is great. And the city of Detroit is trying to find ways to undermine that. And I think it's ridiculous. And the interesting part is, I've had in the last couple months, I've had friends from out of town come here to stay, and a friend from D.C. who I worked at the Washington Post with, he brought his family here to Detroit, and then he was going up north, but they pick different places all the time. He's from New York, and they came to Detroit to hang out, to stay in Detroit, and they did all these things, and you're actually seeing people who are coming to visit Detroit for vacation, which was unheard of.
And staying in neighborhoods and bringing, some of these Airbnbs
Right.
are operating in some of the neighborhoods which are starting to see some commercial traffic again on their main thoroughfares. So I was talking to one operator that's up in the Bagley neighborhood, right by Livernois and 6 Mile, that whole stretch that is being revitalized, and sending people to restaurants on those streets that those people would never make it up to Livernois if they were staying downtown.
Sure. Right.
It's unlikely that they would do that. And same with our friend who's on the east side. I've been into a couple of restaurants on Mack Avenue and saw some people who were like, hey, we love this place. It's like walking distance from their Airbnb. And they never would have gone to that restaurant.
No, exactly. And the idea that it's like, I mean, you have to live in the place yourself. So that essentially restricts it to extra rooms, which a lot of people who, as an Airbnb customer, I prefer to have like a freestanding place to myself.
Interestingly enough, as I was doing some research
So
for
I
this,
can
because this
sing.
was the subject of my podcast on Wednesday, was this Airbnb regulation and a proposed dog regulation, which
Yeah.
I'll get into that another time because I've still got to do some more research on that. But where was I going with this? With Airbnb?
I don't
yeah,
know.
no. I mean, a lot of the complaints are coming from people who are concerned about so-called party houses.
Right.
Right, where there's an absentee landlord that rents a place out as an Airbnb. A bunch of kids rent it, or whoever rents it, they trash the place, trash the neighborhood.
And this is
I've heard a lot of anecdotal stories like that.
Yeah, in other cities.
But here in Detroit too.
Here too?
When I worked at the land bank, I would get complaints from people about any
Okay.
property issue, whether we had anything to do with it or not.
Got
They
it.
would call me because we answered the phone.
Okay.
And so, I got a lot of those complaints, and I've heard that. And the other thing, though, that I've seen being wielded out there, as I was doing my research yesterday, prostitution. pop-up brothels happening
I never thought of
at
that.
Airbnbs where you rent a house and you and
Yeah.
your girlfriends can come over and service your customers for a couple nights and then just move on to the next one. And so this has become a real issue in a lot of different places. And so don't be surprised if that starts being brought up in the conversation as a way to justify this. So just be ready for that because it's happened in a few places.
All right.
I have not heard a lot of stories about that yet here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to confirm whether the police have been dealing with it or not.
Brothels.
Pop-up brothels.
Wow. Well, I mean, are they causing a problem? I mean, if it's
Well, technically, you're not supposed to do anything
yeah,
illegal
I know you're not
inside an
supposed to do
Airbnb,
it,
but
people smoke weed and
But see,
It's legal.
well, not anymore. It never didn't used to be.
But so that's going to be one that that gets put out
Okay.
there.
I never
All right,
thought of that.
all right. We got to wrap up because we're running out of time. So yes, let's indeed talk
The
a little bit of
Detroit
sports.
Tigers.
The Tigers.
Last night I was watching the game, kind of in and out. I'd say, oh, let me check to see what's going on. And like I say, it was 10-8. Tigers are winning, and at seventh inning, and I thought, yeah, they still got a pretty good chance of losing. Then
They always have a good chance of losing.
And then then it's suddenly I just turned it on. Home run. Yankees are now losing by 1 run, 10-9. And then I go, I've had enough.
It's
I
over.
come back. I see the Yankees are winning 11-10. And so then I think it's over. And then suddenly I get on my phone while I'm watching TV and I go, hey, Siri, what's the score of the Tiger game? And it's like 11-11 in the ninth. And I'm like, wow, I got to watch this. And they had a walk-off
In the 10th.
hit and scored.
Oh, in the ninth.
In the ninth.
Yeah.
I think at the bottom of the ninth.
12-11 was the final score.
12-11.
Interestingly enough.
And since the Tigers they've lost 100 games, but I think there were only 20 games left as of yesterday. But now there's only 19, so they can't tie the 1962 record of the New York Mets, who lost 120 games.
Yes, so the Tigers will not be setting any records this year.
Right. Although they
certainly
can tie,
not any
they can
attendance
tie
records,
the,
that's
they
for
can,
sure.
They can tie the record.
That's true. But no, the interesting thing about that game, the Yankees hit 6 home runs in that game. Oh, yeah, it was just. But the Tigers, 16 of their 18 hits were singles. Wow. So they manufactured all those runs, 12 runs yesterday on singles and screw-ups by the Yankees defense. The Yankees, of course, are heading to the playoffs. So.
And I don't know if you saw the end of the game, but after the run scored, I mean, they acted like they won the World Series. I mean, they were going crazy on the field, and they took the bucket and dumped the water over, the guy who hit the
okay, but we do have to wrap up with this, though, because this happened a few days ago. But the Lions tied the Arizona Cardinals after one of the weirdest Lions games I've ever watched. And one of the things that I say every time I watch the Lions is at least once a year, they find a way to lose a game or screw something up in a way that I just didn't know was possible. It's like, I've never seen that before. Never seen that before, whether it's Calvin Johnson and the fake, the catch or whatever. Just new
So
ways.
what happened?
Well, they basically blew an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter, ended up tying.
18 points.
And ties in the NFL are hard to do.
Yeah.
There aren't many of them. Lions haven't been in a tie since like 83
What
or
is the
something
rule?
like that.
Do they have OTs?
I thought
overtime.
they did one.
Okay.
I didn't realize they didn't do two because I thought, okay, well, we're going to go into second overtime. And they said, that's it. It's a tie.
No,
basically what happened is the Arizona Cardinals in the overtime received the ball.
Yeah.
They ran down the field. They scored a
Field goal.
So the Lions have an opportunity to, if
Answer.
they score, they either win or tie. And so they tied, and that was it.
So basically what happens is if the first team to get the ball, it used to be sudden death. First team to score, period, wins in overtime. But then, if you win the toss, 90% of the time they were winning the game.
Right.
So they said that's not quite fair. So if the team that gets the kickoff gets a field goal, the other team gets a chance to do it. But if they score a touchdown, they win the game.
And I think that was the way college wasn't that the way college?
College used to just have ties, and then when they went to overtime, each team gets the ball at the 25. They duke it out until one of them has a higher score.
Right.
It's a great system. Why the NFL doesn't do this, I don't know. They'd be exciting. It's fun. You get 7, 8 overtime games sometimes in college ball. The scores will be like 72-63. I mean, it's fun and exciting.
Yeah.
But this was just like perhaps the most disappointing thing that could have happened. At least if the Lions had lost, I could say, well, I saw that coming. This was just sort of that gut punch that's like a half gut punch. It hurts a little bit. Just sort of leaves you feeling crappy about
Well,
yourself.
Stafford, I was told that Stafford, well after the game, was still very angry about the timeout. What happened? They ran a play near the end, he threw a little pass. They would have had the first down.
They could have killed the clock.
Yeah, they
and
could
won
have
the
killed
game.
the clock, and instead somebody on the sideline right a second before the play called timeout, and they didn't realize it, and so they called the play back, and Stafford was fuming.
Well, and the thing is, then of course the Lions miss the next play. They have to punt. They get the punt blocked. It's just like, it's just true Lions fashion.
It was
True Lions fashion.
falling apart. And it was so funny when I was watching the game. I was
Was it
thinking,
shocking that after one game we already have a Detroit Free Press columnist calling for him to be fired?
Not shocking at all. But when I was watching the game and the Lions were so far ahead, I was like, this is kind of boring. I'd like to see them make it a little closer. And then I was
Careful what you
asking,
wish
you shall
for.
receive.
I was mad for a moment, and then I just started laughing. I go, this is funny.
That's it. My friend and I were watching the game as we do every Sunday, and we just looked at each other and started laughing. We're like,
Yeah,
we are going to
we're like-
screw this one up.
We're
Just
like,
watch.
this is funny. This is
Anyway.
so good.
Like I said, my sense of self-worth is not determined by whether or not my team wins or loses.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, it is nice to see them do something well. It's
Yeah.
been a long time.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up for this week. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the week that was on Deadline Detroit. Nancy Derringer, thank you as always. Alan Lengel, we appreciate you
very
being here.
much.
Michael Lucido, engineering this broadcast today. We always appreciate him as well. And we appreciate all of you for checking it out. Share this with your friends. Let them know we're out here doing this every week. We're having fun. We hope you are too. Most of the comments that I get are pretty solid here.
Good.
Every once in a while, somebody wants to beat us up because they think we're, I won't use the phrase, but it starts with lib.
Oh, okay.
So,
And,
and
once
something bad at the
again,
end of it, but what are you going to do?
Okay.
But anyway, that's it. Have a great weekend, everybody.
and drive home safely.
There you go. Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.